In 1874, a group of painters began to oppose academic doctrines and romantic ideals and turned to the portrayal of contemporary life. For the first time, they took their canvases outdoors and sought to portray what the eye sees rather than what the mind knows. Landscapes and ordinary scenes were among the subjects of these artists. They would make their paintings quickly, under constantly shifting conditions, painting as traditional painters might have made sketches. This period is called Impressionism. In these first two slides, we see the work of the Impressionist painter Claude Monet. Haystacks is the title of a series of 25 paintings that is known for its thematic use of repetition to show differences in perception of light across various times of day, seasons, and types of weather. This type of painting involved direct observation and studies in the physics of light and color. We see light as a complex of reflections received by the eye and reassembled by the mind. The Rouen cathedral paintings, more than 30 in all, Monet made in 1892 and 1893. He uses small dabs of color, pure colors, placed next to each other that appear merely as separate strokes of paint when seen close up, yet become lively depictions of objects when seen at a distance. The result is that the viewer perceives a vibrancy that cannot be achieved with mixed color alone. This is a painting of Venice, also by Monet. The Impressionists saw the beauty of the world as a gift, but had an objective and less emotional manner. Mary Cassatt was an American painter who lived much of her adult life in France, where she befriended Edgar Degas and later exhibited among the Impressionists. Cassatt often created images of the social and private lives of her women friends, with particular emphasis on the intimate bonds between mothers and children. This painting by Cassatt depicts a popular Impressionist theme: contemporary middle-class people enjoying leisure activities, in this case, women at the opera. The Industrial Revolution had created an urban middle class with leisure and a taste for fashion, and the Impressionists chronicled their lives. We see in this image the influence of the painter Degas in the highly inventive approach to pictorial composition. We see a lifelike effect that cuts the figure at the edge. This is a direct influence of Japanese prints that the artists were looking at this time, and a familiarity with the new technology of photography. This is called open form, or cropping the image. In the last half of the 19th century, Western culture increasingly imposed itself upon other cultures whose values were often diametrically opposed to their values. Worldwide, non-Western cultures faced fundamental challenges to their cultural identities. Africa's resources were fought over by European countries. Japan was forced to open its ports in the American West, and the U.S. military was pursuing a policy of extermination of the American Indian. Because of colonization, art from these non-industrial societies were coming into European cities and giving artists new inspiration and influences. This is an Arapaho ghost dance dress. Some of the images are a woman and two eagles with a peace pipe in one hand and a branch in the other. A turtle refers to a creation myth. Birds were considered messengers to the spirit world. This culture believed that the ghost dance dress had the power to protect them from harm and left them immune from gunfire. In 1890, 200 ghost dancers were massacred at Wounded Knee in South Dakota by the U.S. 7th Cavalry. This slide is a buffalo kachina from the Zuni tribe in the American Southwest. It is the likeness of a supernatural character endowed with powers that are evoked when the figure is danced. The Post-Impressionists believed in a free interpretation of nature, not to see things but to see through them to a significance and a reality deeper than what superficial appearance gave. The poet Rimbaud described artists of this period as beings of extraordinary insight, mysterious, visionary, and fantastic. This painting, Flowering Plum Tree, is by Vincent van Gogh and is a copy of a Japanese print. As did other artists of this post-impressionist period, Van Gogh developed a new sense of design from studying Japanese prints. In The Sower, also by Van Gogh, the Japanese influence led Van Gogh to adopt bold, simplified shapes and flat color areas. The wide band of a tree trunk cuts diagonally across the composition, balancing the sun with the movement of the sower. This is a painting also by Van Gogh. Strong use of line and color. Here you see how the Post-Impressionists were using paint like other artists were using pencil or sketching, painting very quickly with lots of rhythm. In his painting Night Cafe, Van Gogh employs red and green to his own expressive ends. This is a quote by Van Gogh taken from a letter that he wrote to his brother Theo. In my picture of the Night Cafe, I have tried to express the idea that the cafe is a place where one can ruin oneself, run mad, or commit a crime. I have tried to express the terrible passions of humanity by means of red and green. Everywhere there is a clash and contrast of the most alien reds and greens. So I have tried to express, as it were, the powers of darkness in a low wine shop. And all this in an atmosphere like a devil's furnace of pale sulfur. It is color not locally true from the point of view of the stereoscopic realist, but color to suggest the emotion of an ardent temperament. This is a self-portrait by the artist Van Gogh. This painting by the post-impressionist painter Gauguin is titled The Vision After the Sermon. It shows Jacob and the angel as they appear to a group of Brittany peasants in a vision inspired by the sermon in their village church, and is a symbolic representation of unquestioning faith. With this image, Gauguin avoids what he considered the distraction of implied deep space. He tips up the simplified background plane and paints it in an intense red. The entire composition is divided diagonally by the trunk of the apple tree, once again in the manner of the Japanese prints. Shapes have been reduced to flat, curvilinear areas outlined in black. This painting is also by the artist Gauguin and was painted after he moved to the island of Tahiti. Gauguin was highly critical of the materialism of industrial society. He used colors as the language of dreams. This painting is called The Day of the God. Where we might expect to see the statue reflected, we get a mysterious ooze of organic shapes in acidic hues. For Gauguin, art had become, above all, a means of communicating through symbols, a synthesis of visual form carrying memory, feelings, and desires. Gauguin's desire to rejuvenate European art and civilization with insights from non-Western traditions will be continued in the early 20th century by Matisse, Picasso, and the German Expressionists. They adopt his vision of the artist as a spiritual leader who could select from the past and from various world cultures anything capable of releasing the power of self-knowledge and inner life. This is another post-impressionist painter, Toulouse-Lautrec. So you see the very, very unusual composition, flattening out the depth of space and a very, very personal use of color, an expressionist use of color. Paul Cézanne is also considered a post-impressionist. Once again, starting to flatten out the picture plane and working with color in much broader shapes. This is a precursor to a period that we're going to study soon, Cubism. This painting is titled The Scream and is by the Norwegian artist Edvard Munch. In this painting, Munch takes us far from the pleasures of Impressionism and extends considerably Van Gogh's expressive vision. In this powerful image of anxiety, the dominant figure is caught in isolation, fear, and loneliness. Despair reverberates in continuous linear rhythms. Munch's image has been called the soul cry of that age. He felt deeply the pain of human life, and his goal was to describe the conditions of modern psychic life.